Good afternoon, everybody. This is the podcast Mahogany Thoughts. I am one of the hosts and the creator of the podcast, Dr. Terrence Duncan. With me, I got one of my co-hosts, Mr. Terrence Butler, and also we have a guest for this week, Brian Hurd. Butler, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Adjusting like everybody else to these pandemic streets.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here. No complaints.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you look at it, I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday and stuff, and he was coming back from Atlanta to go see his family because unfortunately he lost an uncle through COVID. So, people are kind of, laxing a little bit, but we definitely still got to stay vigilant, especially as it affects the Black community. So, make sure everybody's doing their part. I've seen a couple people post on Facebook this past week, more and more friends saying they're testing positive, and I'm not going to cast aspersions as to what they're doing, but by the end of the day and stuff, we just gotta make sure we keep doing our part so we can go see it on the other side.
Yeah, man, it's tough because I think they were doing the summer got a little relaxed to the fall. I just try to tell people, you wear your mask, but also take care of your own body. Get some exercise, eat some more fruits and vegetables, because I don't think a mask can 100% protect you. So definitely get your health up, whether you have an underlying condition or not. You need to take this time to boost your immune system up. So if you do catch it, you're stronger and better off fighting it off, and you won't have it. Hopefully you won't have these symptoms after that.
Absolutely. Hurd, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think he's right. We were shut down in March. And so life just changed for everybody. Basically you had to barricade yourself in your house. You couldn't touch anything. You couldn't go out. You couldn't be in public. And the human spirit and the human body is not built that way. It's built to be connected to other people. And that's what we call community. And so we take that away. It's a challenge for anybody. And being by yourself or being with just your family, after a while, family members can get a little tired of each other too. You just you're in the same house. Everybody needs a break. A time out. But I think it also taught a lot about us as individuals. There's still more to learn. A lot more research will be done on education, especially for young people. So the challenges are still there, and they'll be here for a while. But hopefully, as Terrence Butler just said, there's some silver lining in some of this where, you kind of focus on some of the more important things of life, around your body, your mind, your spirit, and being able to deal with difficult challenges. So I think all in all, there's an upside to it as well.
Absolutely. Real briefly and stuff, crazy Corona stories or anything that you saw that kind of stuck out. I try to add this little portion, it's either SMH or LOL. My funny COVID story, I put it on Facebook, was that I was at the post office, had my mask on, and so I'm standing in line. Mind you, I got a hoodie, baggy pants, jogging pants, t-shirt, whatever. So I was standing in line, and sister, she was working at the desk. She said, "Ma'am," and I was just like, turn around. I'm like, "Who's you talking to?" I didn't know she was talking to me, but. So anyways, I thought that was kind of funny and stuff, because like when you're at the store, you don't know who these people are, they look like and stuff. And, like I said on Facebook jokingly and stuff, because I like, I can laugh at myself, sometimes we need to laugh, but, it's like she could have said it looked like Rick James or, Krusty the Clown or something like that and stuff. But anyways, I did get my hair retwisted. So shout out to Yasha Ray and stuff. But, now I kind of got this big forehead. But my locks are fresh, but I got this big forehead and stuff. So hopefully I won't be called ma'am again no time soon and stuff. I didn't know how to take that. So, I guess when I start filling the applications, I'm going to have to put my pronouns as they and them, something. Maybe I'm binary, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I just thought I got a good chuckle off of that.
Yeah, that's funny.
That was pretty funny. Because I was on the phone and I'm like, man, was she calling me now? So it's, hey.
Did she say it more than once?
Man, I got this Ralph Tresvant mustache going on too and stuff. Like my mustache don't get thick, but dang, like she couldn't at least see the the mustache over the mask or something like that, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on that.
That's funny. Now, I
Heard
think
you got
it's beginning for me. I think it's beginning for me. I think when I ran into a couple of people at stores, you had the mask on and everything, and somebody says, be Heard or Brian or whatever it may be. And I'm like looking, I'm like, I can't recognize who it is behind the mask though. Sometimes,
Right.
especially if you haven't seen them in a while, and to get a
Right.
haircut or a new hairstyle or whatever it may be. I'm like, you don't want to, be rude or say the wrong names, So sometimes you just have to go along with it
Oh
until
yeah.
you can pick up some clues to figure out who it is.
Well,
It's
like I said, my
definitely
family.
hard recognizing people with this mask. I see people in the grocery store or going to other places. I'm like, I hear my name called. I'm like, oh, once I hear them talk and tell me who they are, but like far away, I can't really tell who's who.
Yeah, I joked around and said it's kind of like the New York action and stuff where you got to walk around with the mask. You kind of look at him like this, like, yo, what's up, son? What's up,
Right.
man? You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, you got to go straight Wu-Tang and start recognizing folk.
You know what else is funny is that whole cultural conditioning, because everybody wearing masks now, so it's like everybody's just comfortable with it. You walk by somebody and you're a black person walking into different spaces and different places,
right,
with a mask on, and nobody even blinks twice now. But if you had it on before, like a hoodie,
mm-hmm.
people want to call the police or say I don't recognize this or something was behavior or whatever. But now because we were not mandated, but suggested that we wear a mask in public, all of a sudden it's no problem. There's a problem with the people who don't want people to wear masks, but nobody's shook by seeing somebody with a mask now. So I think that whole cultural conditioning, that mindset, man, is just all that implicit bias and racism in general. I mean, I think all those things, man, it's just something that's being challenged and something that's being elevated to a whole new level.
Absolutely. Before we go into the actual main topic, which we're going to talk about voting, because the general election, we're recording this on October the 31st. The election is on Tuesday. We actually had a record number of voting, early voting. And before we go into that conversation, we're going to go ahead and let Mr. Heard introduce himself, tell him about what he does. Like I was, before we actually did the recording, I met Heard through a sports group that I'm in, and really knowledgeable brother. I respect his mind, respect his spirit, his hustle, and his ambition. This brother is really dedicated himself to uplifting Black communities, and being very active in a variety of ways and organizations and stuff. So I know we've been tiptoeing around trying to do some collabos, and I know that's going to happen all the time. We actually did do a publication on green human resource management. And we'll be doing a couple of other more academic publications and stuff because, as my mentors told me and stuff, which is the reason why I do this podcast, is that when you do something, make sure you bring others with you, because otherwise, your accomplishments are nothing when you look at it for what you're doing for Black community and you do it for individual perspective. So, Heard is definitely dynamic brother and stuff, and definitely be a guest again. So. Without further ado, Mr. Heard, Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, projects that you wish to disclose, and just the ways that people can reach out to you if interested, as far as following you on your Facebook page, or if you have any websites or anything like that to continue following you well after this podcast.
I appreciate that. And to you, Dr. Duncan, and my good friend Terrence, who I've just come to know, but looking forward to meeting him and getting to know him more. I appreciate the opportunity to be with both of you. This is like a Saturday at the barbershop almost, where you have the
Absolutely.
most authentic of conversations. I do have a little bit of hair left, so I think I'm still good. I know you get the twist, and Butler has a little balding going on, but we all make the business.
I've been over for like 10 years. I stopped trying. I've given up the ghost.
This is my last hurrah before it's all gone, brother. So trust me, this is my last youthful moment. This is my 1990s moment.
Yeah. Well, it's all good though. But again, thank you for having me. And I'd like to say that my life is built around rebuilding the urban core areas and urban core neighborhoods. So I think my mission is building what I call youth-centered, healthy, sustainable communities, and really just trying to find ways to repopulate our urban core areas, not just urban core areas, but also how we live as people, people of color, particularly Black people, and just trying to make things more fair and more equitable for our quality of life. So in a nutshell, that's what I do, try to build stronger, healthy neighborhoods, dealing with social and physical determinants of health around historic community trauma, things we think about redlining and what it's done for the history of our community in the Black community, going back to the early 1900s, different administrations in terms of presidential administrations. A lot of that has had a major impact on the lack of our economic growth and mobility over the past several decades. So those are things I try to address, dealing with appraisal values in our communities, how they're suppressed, how we are overtaxed in terms of property taxes, but we receive less services in terms of public services. And that's why many of our neighborhoods look the way they do, because there's an unfair imbalance in the way resources are distributed. So in a nutshell, I know Terrence Butler, I know you from East St. Louis. I'm doing a couple of projects over there in the Winstanley neighborhood area. If you're familiar with Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church, I'm doing a collaboration partnership with them on some affordable housing. And we're also doing a comprehensive neighborhood plan for that entire area. That's State Street on the north side. The eastern boundary is around 21st Street. Southern boundary is Broadway, and then 10th Street on the western boundary. So that area, and we've done some of the newest housing over the past 10 years, affordable housing in that area. So we continue trying to keep momentum, trying to repopulate that area with quality housing that's affordable, of course, because that's what the market dictates for East St. Louis. It's an economically challenged area. I think everybody knows that. So just trying to figure out ways in which to create that quality housing that's safe, new, more modern, affordable, and just, really for families. So again, youth, and having outdoor space for them to play and to grow up in a healthy community. So that's what I do.
Ask you a quick question regarding that. Are you doing the houses? Are you trying to do them for lease or for sale?
So we did what we call Sinai Village 1 back in 2011. That was about 40 homes, which are lease purchase. So it's based on the tax credit system. So once that comes up on this 15-year compliance period, not to get too technical, there'll be a chance and opportunity for those residents, and we don't call them renters, we call them residents. There'll be a chance for them to qualify and to be able to convert to home ownership. There's some things that will have to happen going into that 15th year to get them prepared for that. But it's a situation where they'll have some instant equity in the home once they convert. So we're going to be providing some services with some other organizations that do home buyer counseling. So again, it's part of that 15-year compliance period. That's why we wanted to do lease purchase development. So we did first phase in 2011. We came back in 2014, did a second phase, and we're trying to work on the third phase now, which will be a conversion of an old warehouse that will be fully gutted, fully rehabbed with all the modernization in terms of features. It'll be designed through active living design, which is an architectural term that allows for people to have movable space, so that you don't just put elevators where they can be easily seen, but put the stairwell where they can see it to make them use the stairs. So, in our community, as you know, health is a major issue and obesity is a major issue. So getting people just moving. So we have a great architect that's been doing a lot of the work on that. So we're very excited. We're just waiting on some financial opportunities to come in terms of the leveraging, but we hopefully will have word sometime over the next several months.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, because it's definitely needed in the city. So definitely salute to you for getting through phase 1, not phase 2. You say you're on phase 3 now, so that's awesome.
Yeah, right. At first phase 1 and phase 2, there was all new construction. The third phase, again, is a property we have on MLK within that footprint, we call the Winstanley area. It'll be, and there will also be some new construction as well around it. So it'll be kind of a mixed housing type of a building that will have apartments but then there'll be some other townhome style new construction around it as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Just a quick question. Trying to think about some of your older Facebook posts. What led you to your passion to do this type of work? And then also, I can't remember the name of the organization that you're affiliated with, but I do recall you being one or the only African American on this organization that deals with urban planning. So, just for your audience and stuff, for those who are even interested in walking your path, I think that story probably would be beneficial to share, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I've been in St. Louis about 20 years, but before coming to St. Louis, I was back on the East. I'm from Virginia. Went to school in North Carolina. But I grew up as a, like we all do, grow up and we have our experiences. But I always wondered why certain neighborhoods were built the way they were, why certain neighborhoods had different amenities and they just looked different, they felt different. I always wondered why downtowns were built where they were. So I always had a fascination about how cities evolve, the history of cities and the history of communities, and why certain populations, like the African-American Black population, was in a certain part of the city versus, somewhere else, and why you may have had the Jewish communities in certain places, why you may have had other racial groups in different parts of the city. So always fascinated by that. And I will say that a lot of it was done, what we call intentionally done by design. Again, when you had things like redlining. So just learning about a lot of that. And then I think as a little boy growing up back in the 70s, actually reading and learning about Black Wall Street, not just the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but there was some other Black Wall Streets in America as well, for those who did not know, like in Durham, North Carolina. But
yep.
At that time, we were dependent upon ourselves. So we had to invest with each other. We had to work with each other. We had to build our own neighborhood. So we had to bank with banks that would take our money and provide loans for our community, hotels, with the artists that were traveling, they couldn't go to the white hotels. So, there was an opportunity to build small Black-owned hotels. And just always fascinated about that entrepreneurship. And then when you think about 1921, the Tulsa Massacre, and even before that, even in East St. Louis, Brother Butler, you may have known about this, of course. The Red Summer was the summer around the country where there was a lot of lynchings and a lot of massacres happening. East St. Louis, you had the Great Migration, a lot of Blacks coming from the South, coming into the industrial Midwest. They were looking for jobs, and the business owners, they were hiring Blacks. They could hire Blacks at a lower wage at that time, The whites that were there, they were getting mad and taking it out on the Blacks. They weren't taking it out on the management and the owners who were hiring them. They were taking it out on the Blacks. So, but 1919 was we saw a lot of Blacks in the South migrating to the Midwest, Detroit, St. Louis, of course, Cleveland, getting some meaningful employment, changing the quality of life, and just understanding how cities evolved and how Blacks made it to certain regions around the Midwest and populated certain areas. It's always been a fascination for me to learn and to know. And that's all about planning. A lot of that is done, we call planning as a profession. And so, just do a lot of work around development of land use patterns and people as well, the quality of life. Those are things that are important and why I got into planning and development.
Yeah, I would love to see more documentaries about the history of Black America. I think our schools do such a poor job of educating, either whether it be in the suburbs or the projects, educating us on what actually happened in American history. Yeah. All we hear are the George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, great president stories, right, versus what actually took place, how many people actually were lynched, killed, how much we had to go through as a people to even get where we are now. So my mind says they're with you as far as learning about all those. I'm constantly learning new things daily on the history of America and all the things we had to go through. My mind is always blown more because I was taught so little growing up. So I'm like in school all over again every day.
Yeah. I mean, that's important. We definitely have to, challenge our public school systems and school in general. But even us. But like you said, documentaries. We need more of those. But I'm glad to see a lot of our independent film producers. They're a lot of them are doing some great work out there. I mean, we don't always get a chance to see it, but certainly we could use more. We could learn about how Chicago was established. We could learn about how Washington D.C. was designed. Those were blacks that were instrumental in those roles. But a lot of our cities, you'd be surprised some of the history of some great cities and how they were designed, how they were developed, a whole host of things that blacks contributed to in terms of the development and innovation of our cities.
Yeah, I think that, I think you've really brought about some great points, both of you guys. And it is disappointing to see the public school system, even in our own urban communities, Black communities, that are not really talking about the Great Migration. I did a lot of research for it on a book that I'm working on, and it kind of led me to just doing this podcast. I think it's very important to, capture our voices and to try to continue to educate through any way possible, because even though it would be nice for the school systems to go ahead and implement such, history and discussions, it's going to probably take some time. And, as you see, currently highlighted by the current administration, how much resistance it is to about the 1619 project and, removing diversity training and government contracting work and consulting work. It's still ways to go, but just because that these mechanisms are in place to thwart our overt efforts still doesn't take away our responsibility to educate each other. So, this podcast, the intent of the podcast, as I stated every time, is to provide us opportunity to have our voices unfiltered, unadulterated, and to be able to share facts, and be able to share things that I didn't know, like you just shared a couple of things, just even in your brief bio, that helped me learn a little bit more, which is one of the reasons why that I find myself continually following your news feed, because you don't just put opinions. Most of your stuff is grounded, I say 98% of your stuff is grounded in facts, and the other 2% is opinions, but you always do an excellent job, from the times that I've seen you, the times I've sat down and interacted with you face to face, about making sure that we are grounded in evidence-based information and as well as the truth, and that truth gets taken away. Now, about the Great Migration, I just thought that was kind of interesting because I was just, rewatching The Chi. That was, if people haven't seen this on Showtime, it's pretty good. The third season was all right, but the first 2 seasons were really dope. But, they talked about the Great Migration and how, blacks were just happy to get away and they migrated, from the South. And they don't talk about that, but they talk about the Great Migration of the Oregon Trail and, how they went westward for gold and stuff like that. So all these years, it took me almost, I'm 44 now, it probably took me almost till mid-30s before I really understood the Great Migration. I knew that, a lot of us came, a lot of our families have the Southern roots, but we never really understood the history of it. We never really had a discussion as to why we have these discussions. Why, the Great Migration has not been a regular conversation. So, I think it's a good point to not only do it for this podcast, but heard you continue to do great work. And I hope y'all really, please follow that. Please follow my page, because when he puts great information out, I'm sending the information out as well. I'm sharing it and stuff because that information needs to be known, needs to be seen.
Good stuff, bro. Good stuff.
Butler, you have anything?
No, I did think back, we're talking about like education and whatnot. My oldest daughter had a basketball showcase in, where did we go? Is it Nashville? No, not that. Louisville, Kentucky. And so the whole family went down there, and we stopped by the Muhammad Ali Museum, and we're walking through, looking at different exhibits and whatnot. And my youngest daughter was the one who was most fascinated by everything. She was like, I've never even heard of Muhammad Ali. Now, I guess that's my fault, for one, for not really telling her about him. But she was going through, looking at all the different things that were going on during that time frame. And she was like in such shock. I was like, you never probably knew any of this. And in class. You never been taught any of this in your history class or anything like that. I said, no, I didn't know that. And I just remember this. She was soaking up so much knowledge. We had to pull her out of there because she's just like, I can't believe all this was going on. She liked the boxing part of it, but she was more into his activism and how during that time it was so tough on Black people to do anything. So if that's just a shout out to that museum. It's awesome. If you ever in Louisville, definitely go check it out. I learned a lot myself going through there, and that's kind of what brought me back to talking about how our education system does such a poor job of telling us real historical facts about America.
Absolutely.
Our history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our history, yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and go into the main scope of the conversation that we're going to have today. Like Mr. Hurd has said, it's like a barbershop. I like that. I like that analogy and stuff, because we want to just, be relaxed and just have a conversation like we would at a barbershop, or if you just came by to visit, or if you're smoking a cigar or having a cocktail. These conversations can be held. You know what I mean? And actually, I think that it should be held more often. I mean, no, we're not trying to be on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or ET News or whatever the case may be and stuff. But I think it's time. Like I said, we all have an obligation to try to educate and inform each other, and it's not trying to make people feel bad or try to dominate a conversation or to postulate how intelligent one person is and stuff. But I think it's we have to get in that conversation, and we can't be afraid to have it. So we're going to talk about voting, as I stated earlier, and I'm going to just do a brief little presentation, just a little something different. This is our 9th episode, so obviously last week we had some technical difficulties. I probably have technical difficulties again. I'm trying to stream this thing on live, but we are recording this as a video, and we'll be able to share that on YouTube. So those actually upload immediately after. So for those who may have had a hard time trying to find it, my apologies again. I'm still working on it. I'm not the most tech savvy, and this is a startup. But you're more than welcome to share this as much as possible. So I just did a quick little presentation just to kind of go along with the podcast, because this is a very serious thing that we must, talk about, not only for 2020, but for 2022, 2024, and beyond. And because our voice does matter. And, one thing that we've heard, maybe not so much with our demographic, but maybe younger demographics, that our voting does not count. So I just put 5 slides together just to add a little context to what we're going into before we get into our actual barbershop conversation. So, one of the things that we have to consider is voter suppression. And I put a couple examples up. And one thing to note is prior to 1965, which was the enactment of the Voting Rights Act, states used policy as poll taxes and literacy tests to prevent Blacks from voting. I actually did not know. I actually heard about ways that people, like the whites and the government try to prevent Blacks from voting, but I didn't know to the extent of literacy tests. Like there had to be, and it was almost like a moving goalpost enacted just to keep people from voting, to keep Blacks from voting and other minority groups to vote. Prior to 2016, voting election for 14 states enacted laws to address voter fraud. But 5 of those states had a well-documented history of racial discrimination in voting, and even asked for federal approval before changing those laws. What are the results of that? Some of the results include the states where there's been a high history of voter discrimination. They had fewer places to vote in 2016. As you may recall, there was a lot of instances where the polls were closing early. There was a smaller level of voter intimidation, but it still was active enough to dissuade or preclude people from voting. You had this big fuss about, providing some kind of form of a state-issued ID or government-issued ID. Another result is concerted efforts by Republicans to disenfranchise minority votes continue in the 2020 elections. And I just shared a post that I found earlier today where the Biden to Harris campaign was trying to go to Austin, Texas from, I believe it was from Dallas, to try to get a last minute, pitch. And there was, numerous Trump supporters that pretty much created a blockade, and they outnumbered the police escort by 50-1. And actually, one of the Trump supporters actually had collided with one of the supporters' vehicles in the car, and it became so dangerous and tenuous that they had to cancel their efforts to go. So that's actually voter suppression and intimidation. And if you don't believe me, there's actually a video of it. So this is not something we make up. I'm actually a registered independent, so I have voted Republican before. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I do lean more progressive and a little bit more moderate, so it just depends on what day of the week and what the topics are. But other examples of voter suppression includes improper ballot drop boxes, closing polls early, and missing information. Heard you are from North Carolina, so I know that you still have, or from the Virginia area, so I know that you probably have a lot of connections out, and you went to school in Carolina, so I know you have a lot of connections out there. Gerrymandering. For a lot of people who don't know, people use especially the midterms. What they do is that they flood these congressional candidates to enact legislation to impose gerrymandering and other litigated related assaults on democracy and freedoms and the opportunity to vote. So gerrymandering, the definition is to manipulate the boundaries as to favor one party class over the other. If you look at the video, you'll see the actual maps showing examples of how gerrymandering can influence the election based on the numbers of, or how the maps were drawn to help benefit the Republican Congress for the state of North Carolina. But the voting populations itself swings more Democratic than a lot of people tend to be. So they tend to say Carolina is a red state, but in actuality, it's been trending towards a blue state, which is Democratic voting patterns. But the way that the Republicans close the legislature, they're able to influence and suppress their ability to impose law, or ability to make laws that's a little bit more balanced. One thing that I talk about, not only in my book, but just in casual conversation, is the aftershocks of the Obama election. That was a height for Black America, where President Obama, whether you like him now or not today, his election to the presidency had created aftershocks where it actually drew a correlation to how Donald Trump became elected as the 45th president of the United States. So in 2010. The Tea Party began to ascend. They started to nominate and put candidates to become elected and hold positions of power and influence. That happened in 2010. During 2010 and 2014, during the midterm elections, voter apathy, particularly among Blacks, ushered sweeping candidates who were not only anti-Obama, but they were very hard right-leaning, meaning that their views were a little bit more strongly on the conservative side. And I try not to do the whole labeling thing and stuff, but a fair number of those Tea Party candidates, they were more beneficial for whites and not really inclusive of other ethnic groups. And because of this outrage that a lot of this voting constituency had, that's how someone like Donald Trump became the president of the United States. So it's not so much of whether or not he lost the general election, but won the electoral college, but it was the fact that had we collectively make sure that we had as much energy in voting in the midterm elections, a lot more of Obama's agenda could have been enacted, as well as that a person like Donald Trump probably would not have been elected president of the United States. So, so if you feel like that your vote doesn't matter, it does matter year after year, and that's just on the national stage. Voter suppression, there's efforts to suppress minority votes, and that has continued despite the end of the Jim Crow laws in the 60s. And according to the Brennan Center, 25% of Blacks do not have a government-issued ID. So if you look at states that are providing voter ID requirements or showing identification requirements for voting, just think about 25% of Blacks across the country don't have an ID, so that precludes them from being able to vote. In the state of Tennessee, they created hurdles for third-party voting efforts, such as Get Out the Vote or other, organizations, nonprofit organizations, to try to mobilize Black voting. if their efforts had, they created these legal hurdles and made it more difficult for Black voters to get enrolled. And that was as the 2018 election. And the great state of Georgia, 80% of voters were blocked by the exact match voter registration law that had passed in 2018. I didn't get a chance to really see what that meant, but for those who are in the Georgia area, primarily in Atlanta, you may have an idea of what I'm talking about. But these are examples of stuff where you know, if you're not voting regularly, you know, from a gubernatorial to a national election, you know, your vote does count. And you may feel like, okay, well, like I stay in the state of Illinois, even though I'm in the greater St. Louis metro area, and Illinois is the primary blue state. It's the, you know, if I was not voting, it's hard for you to complain. I think it's hard for you to complain because of the fact that we had an opportunity to address it. Now, will it affect everything? No, but at least gives us a fighting chance. And as African Americans, we have to understand that we have to take advantage of and exploit any opportunities that are present. So we're going to talk about understanding how to search, you know, for your candidate's record. But one thing to do is that if you want to know who you're voting for in their track record, I provided 2 websites, govtrack.us/Congress and usa.gov/voter-research. And you can find out any of your congressional candidates' issues and also your municipality votes as well. So if you're unfamiliar who these people are, you know, go beyond the commercials, go beyond the ads, because most of those ads, 70% of them is not really factual. But, you know, St. Louis area, I keep seeing commercials like I used Ann Wagner, and I used the site, and I saw that, you know, that she's very right-leaning. And so a lot of her votes and a lot of the bills that she signed off on did not benefit, if I stayed in Missouri, would not have benefited me. So I would have a vested interest not to vote for her. And so that's just the presentation. I just wanted to share that briefly. And now we're going to get into the discussion for the next 20 to 30 minutes. Butler, Hurd, you know, since you are our host, our guest, and I believe a resident expert on a lot of the voting based on the material that you put out, seeing that presentation, what are your first thoughts that come to mind?
I think you, I mean, I like the example that you showed of North Carolina and gerrymandering, and you know, politics is politics, and what that means is people who know how to master it, because there is an art and science to it. It's all about power. It's like a chessboard. You know, you try to position yourself to win, to have power, to have control, so that you can manipulate the laws to your benefit and to those who support you. So that's what gerrymandering is for. I mean, it's a conjugation of the word, I forget the gentleman's name, but Jerry and the salamander. And basically, you know, it's just the evolution of how the body moves. And, you know, if somebody who just intentionally tries to draw these lines to pick up more of their supporters within a particular congressional district, so that they can have almost power without any competition. And so in North Carolina, which is probably the state most known for gerrymandering over the past few years, it's gotten up to the U.S. Supreme Court in terms of a lot of you know, decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court. So I mean, work still needs to be done. There are certain states that do a little bit differently, but the bottom line is, if you don't know what's going on, that's why our people, the Black, in many cases, we're behind the ball, because a lot of times we don't know what's going on because we're not actively involved in the processes and things that happen. So we have to do a better job all around as a nation, everybody, to be more in tune and more informed about the laws, but also what's going on in terms of strategy and tactics to maintain power for certain individuals.
Butler?
Well, looking at your presentation, I was especially what got me is I never knew how to properly research candidates. I remember voting so many times, and after the president or maybe the mayoral part, I didn't know anything about anyone else I was voting for, unless I may have heard their name on a commercial. Oh, I've heard of this person, but I never knew how to properly research or where to go. So I took mental notes of that site, because I think one big flaw in our whole system is, like, once we vote for a congressman, president, or mayor, after that we have no power. Every law, every bill that's voted on is upon those that we basically give our power to vote on our behalf. But they can say whatever they want to get a vote. After that, they can really do what they want for the most part. We just have to just trust they have our best interests at heart. And of course, we know that the majority of them do not, which I think why this country is in the state it's in now. So I would love to see a system to where we have more power to vote on individual bills, individual laws, versus just voting on people to be elected to those positions to do it for us.
Yeah, I think one of the ways to do that is, and Herb, maybe you know this better than I do, and I haven't had a chance to dive into the research. Political action committees, they're used predominantly, and they're using predominantly with other, like on a national stage, but I really don't see too many Black political action committees, where they're forming the voters, or, that we're providing, large sums of donations or whatever to help, get our votes to be recognized. Because one thing that people have to understand, regardless of what they say on the Supreme Court or what they say in a regular conversation, is that money does influence an election,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I know Butler, I know you from East St. Louis. I used to work, for the government and stuff. And I've seen people actually get arrested and prosecuted and stuff for, distributing $5 and stuff for voting, in the East St. Louis area. I mean, there's history of other, Black organizations, nonprofits, whatever, that have received monies historically, to help sway the votes, because that was a way to try to help, get Blacks to vote, one way or another. But you think of other ethnic groups and stuff. I never forget the time where Obama wanted to do something with Israel, or maybe it was the Iran deal, and they put so much pressure on the senators in New York, the Jews did, because they said basically, it's like, hey, if you vote for this particular bill, not only are we not going to support you, but we're going to bankroll the opposition. And that threat, that economic threat to take away such funding, really hurt, some of those efforts. And I can't remember if the bill passed, but I just remember like how much pressure that the Jews were, if you look at it as far as an ethnic bloc, they were able to help influence. And it seems like, from my personal perspective, that we get solicited only during the national election, but we rarely get solicited during the general election. And there, during that time, those individuals actually come in, they actually will, regardless of what Trump has done with executive orders and this and that, Congress writes the laws. And so if you got people who are spending their money into putting these folks in power that help write these laws, and especially in the Senate, or like a McConnell, or whatever the case may be, we have a diminished ability to influence that vote. So we have to understand, we have to understand the game. We have to learn how to play the game for what it is. Herb?
You're right. I mean, it's a game, and you got to know how to play it. And it goes back. Number one, first of all, you have to register to vote. That's the first thing we all have to do. Register to vote.
Yes.
Second thing is, do your research. You gotta research the issues, the politician is running, and then we have to get out and we gotta vote. But then when we vote, we think that's the end, and that's not the end, because really registering, doing your research, voting, that's kind of the first three legs of the race.
Sure.
That fourth piece is where it comes home, is we got to be the advocates. And so it's almost like just being a lobbyist. And the term lobbyist comes from a Washington, D.C. hotel back in the day, when some business owners and strong business interests were waiting in the hotel lobby, waiting on then President Ulysses Grant, to come down so that they could agitate, advocate on their behalf, and persuade legislation that benefited them. So we don't do that. We have to be in the game.
Is that really where that term came from?
It is, yeah.
When the actual lobbyists, what's called lobbyists.
They were in the hotel lobby waiting on him. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. I never
yeah,
knew that.
yeah.
Wow.
President Grant. I forget the hotel. It wasn't the Astoria. It was I can't remember the name of the hotel, but yeah, they're waiting in the hotel lobby. So that's where the term lobbyist comes from. Just sitting out, waiting on them to come out of the meeting room or whatever it may be. It's the same thing today when they come out of Congress and they dismiss whatever. You have all the lawyers, you have all the K Street lobbying firms. I mean, that's what they do, waiting on them. And but the thing is, politicians are not scared until their record is shown. And we don't just do enough research. And it doesn't take a lot of research. I mean, you put a very valuable couple resources up there for us to go to. But if we had a little dashboard, and it's not with so many congressional districts. I live in the second congressional district here in Missouri. You know, I probably should just go ahead and just start, you know, pulling up my congresswoman, who I hope will not win, but she's in a re-election right now. But a little dashboard to say this is what they voted on and this is what they didn't vote on. I don't think it has to be anything complicated. And then the other part of it is that they don't make moves, they don't vote unless they know what the public interests are. That's why they still do all that polling. They do all that polling. A lot of them will not vote just based on saying, I think this is a good bill or this is good legislation. Hey, they test to win. They test to win. They got somebody polling to figure out, okay, well, what do my constituents really want? Or those that are listening and watching, you know, what is it that they want? I get things from Jeff City, from my state rep and my state senator, like all the time. They give me like this big thing, this big survey. And want me to fill out the survey and send it to them, and that helps inform their decision. Yeah, we don't get that at the congressional level, but I wish we did. But you know, again, when you go to DC, it's a whole different ball game. But we just gotta, you know, again, we gotta register, we gotta research, and it's not that complicated. We gotta get out and vote, and then we gotta hold everybody accountable by advocating. So, you know, with Biden and Kamala Harris, if they win and we get them into the White House without votes, as an example, we can't just stop there. We got to push them. We got to push them. You know, basically give them 1 year. You got 365 days to show us you mean what you meant on the campaign trail, because in 2024, there are no promises.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are no promises.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, because I remember we actually had a debate and stuff as to whether or not Senator Harris is going to be a good vice president candidate. I mean, she's definitely, I think she did a better job articulating her position as a VP candidate than she probably did under the Democratic national debates. But, you know, it's this thing where we have to be more mindful of just because you see a black face, you know, on the ticket doesn't mean that they naturally have their best interests at heart. You know, I'm not from East St. Louis area, nor am I from the Centerville area and stuff, but I know cases like that down the hill in the city and in other black, you know, heavily populated black communities and stuff, where you actually have, you know, people elected in these positions who don't have your best, you know, who doesn't act in the best interest of that city or the constituents. And again, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to call any names out or anything like that from my perception, because I don't know these people personally and stuff, but you know, you just have a lot of ineptitude for those who put in and stuff, and they just keep lining their pockets from lobbying interest, or, you know, they're more interested, or those people are actually in those positions or more interested in elevating up. You know, you start off as a, you know, city council, and then next, you know, you're a state rep, then you go from state rep to senator to state senator to national senator, U.S. Senate. And, you know, and like Mr. Hurd said, we have to hold these people accountable and stuff, because by the end of the day, you have to represent East St. Louis, you have to represent St. Louis, you got to represent North County, you got to represent Durham, you know. So, you know, like Mr. Hurd said, we have to really just keep, you know, making sure that we are just as engaged 4 months from now as we are over the last 4 months prior to the election, because this has happened. I've been on Facebook maybe 10, 15 years, or I don't even know how long it is, but every election is like, we're so loud and vocal leading up to the national. But then in the midterm, the voter apathy kicks in amongst us. And, you know, I said they bank on us not to vote. Now, 2018 was, I'm going to call it an anomaly for now, you know, but let's see what happens in 22. You know, are we going to come out the same way? Yeah, we did. Yeah, blacks did a good job in ushering out a lot of folks. You know, we actually got a senator on the ropes in South Carolina from a brother. You know, I'd never thought in my lifetime I would see a brother win South Carolina. and for a U.S. Senate seat, but it could possibly happen and stuff. But the biggest question is, and for those who's listening, is how are we going to be able to? It's a question for the panel. How are we going to be able to continue to get ourselves active in the political process? We don't have to actually run for office, but how can we continue to hold people accountable? I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think as a people, I think the majority of, I would say, as Black people, we already feel powerless in this country as a whole, not all of us. So when we think on a political level, not only do most of us not feel our vote matters, because we say once we vote, we feel powerless, but I don't think we have enough collective resources to even sway a candidate one way or the other. So I think a lot of us just feel after we vote, it's done, and we get to have barbershop talk for the next 2 to 4 years over how good or how bad this candidate has performed. I don't think we know how to actively get involved to make a change. And I think we as people, after we vote, we have to start actively building our communities. We have to start getting the word out about educating ourselves financially on how to grow wealth in our own families and on a community level. And I think that helps us feel more empowered in this country when we can elevate our net worth, elevate our knowledge on what's actually going on. Most of us are so caught in the rat race of living day to day that we don't even have time to think on anything bigger than what am I going to eat next week, what am I going to eat next month. We're so internally involved in just trying to survive that we don't even put much mental thought on how can I really impact my community, how can I impact my nation? Because we're just, good time song say, struggling to survive, something like that, along those lines. So I think we need a mindset that will help us elevate to now how can I change my community? How can I build with my community to be sure we have all the resources we need and not depend so much on the government for our resources. We have to look more within our own communities. Maybe possibly every community, I think, should even have like credit unions. They should know where to go. We should have our own grocery store, just like kind of like Black Wall Street was. We need to kind of rebuild that mindset amongst our people. So regardless of what they do on that macro level, we're still always taken care of.
That's good. That's good. I don't disagree with that. I think going back to Duncan's original point, and I think all that is true, Butler, in terms of economic mobility, sustainability, meaning self-sustainability for us as a community, so we can have those resources. But I think the two things that all politicians are.
Heard you cutting out, bro.
Are driven by or responsible organization. And so although we have.
Can you hear me?
Y'all still here?
Yeah,
you hear me?
Your signal got kind of faded a little bit. Can you go ahead and try to repeat that again? I'm sorry. Actually, your signal's kind of moving in and out. Okay, I can see you now.
So I'm just. You hear me now?
Yeah, I can see you.
There you go.
Put my laptop up.
Okay, so basically, money, as you mentioned before, but also organization. And so there might be some brothers and sisters and families that can't deal with the day-to-day stuff, but I mean, we got a lot of leaders in the neighborhoods and communities who can bring that information to us and make it digestible for us to understand. So when it's time to move in the midterms, we're in a good position and well prepared to mobilize to do that. But I think we need to start holding forums on a regular basis. I mean,
yes.
We're in this virtual platform now, so these politicians don't have to fly here. But you need to come speak to this Black community here in the greater St. Louis area, and we got all these different organizations, so they can be hosting, periodically host something, and keep our people engaged, but also keep these politicians engaged as well, as in terms of our Congress people. And if we can, because again, the midterms are going to be important. And if we lose the House and we can't get the Senate, or we have the Senate now and lose it in 2 years, then it's all for naught. But we got to stay engaged and keep that foot on the pedal, man. I mean, that's the bottom line.
I have a
Absolutely.
question. Kind of I want to kind of propose to the panel also. Do you all think that as a people that we'll ever have enough political power to either start our own party or have enough power to sway the Democratic or Republicans to really act in our best interest?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question.
So I can answer the second one. I think that we can have enough influence. And I think that what we have to do is that, first of all, the reason why I had shifted to independent was because of the fact, like I said, I voted Republican before because I stay in St. Clair County, and most of the people who have sat in power for a long period of time, and I'm not going to know names, but these people do not really have the Black people's best interest at heart. They come down, they pander, they solicit the votes. I think they pass money out sometimes. They put the signs out, but then afterwards, what we're talking about earlier, they don't come back. So we got to hold those people accountable. And I would love to actually have them on this podcast, or even just forums, where we actually have these conversations. So I've actually voted Republican probably about 80% of the time these last several midterms and stuff for my local municipality, because those who have been Democratic they have not accomplished what they set forth to say, what they said that they were going to do, a large share of them. I think that for those who are a little bit more economically mobile, whether they want to admit it or not, that they're either more centrist or they actually lean some ways moderate Republican and just don't want to publicly admit it, because some of the moderate Republican ideology actually aligns with some of our economic interests, but the social issues are what the problems are. So if we do have more African Americans that's sitting on the Republican side, we have to make sure that they have a responsibility to think of us as a whole collectively, and not about enrichment. So the people that you see that are in power now, like Senator Scott from Florida, and then you have people like Candace Owens, I honestly feel like that they're pandering in a lot of ways, or that they're holding back. We have to stop that, So if I ever decided to run for Republican, I would do it still with our voices in heart, because what you have to remember too is that Louis Farrakhan, the majority of the funding in his vehicles and his programs actually came from Republicans. So it kind of makes me think about Cube, which we'll talk about in a second. But do I think that we can really influence in that way? I don't know. I think it really just comes down to stakeholder and collaborations. You look outside the United States, you've seen a lot of strategic partnerships and collaborations, and it's about the overall best interest and not so much of an individualistic interest. So this America First conversation stuff really is not sustainable, because we have a global economy. And so if we're doing that, we're creating just trade deficits and things like that. So if we're doing things that's purely just for our Black voices, and that we continue to isolate and segregate ourselves from any possible collaboration and stakeholder relationships, we're going to continue to have our voices suppressed, because we only make up 12% of the populace, and we're the third largest ethnic group in the U.S. So we have to understand about having people to be aligned with us, similar to the way with the civil unrest that we have going on throughout the country. They have to be able to be consolidated with us as well, and trying to uplift their voices.
That's good. I'll say to that question, Blacks were originally Republicans,
right,
coming out of slavery with Abe Lincoln.
Yep.
Then during the New Deal with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, we started migrating, becoming more Democrat under the New Deal. But I do believe, though, it's about time for Blacks to become independent, or at least look at becoming just independent. And it's not to say you can't caucus with Democrats or Republicans. And
Right.
Blacks, we're not monolithic. We all have our different views and opinions on depending on what the subject may be. Who can get us there. But I think with our small population base, we know that we are important in critical times. We just got to play the position right and know how to leverage that need, because the Republicans, if they think that we are available, they may, change some ways to try to get some of our support, or the Democrats, underestimating and not respecting us the way they should as a large backbone part of that party. We just need to probably explore being a little bit in the middle. And then, it's not to say we can't caucus with the Democrats. You got Angus King from Maine. He's an independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats.
Bernie Sanders.
Lisa Murkowski, she was a long lifetime Republican, and she's still a Republican, but she ran as an independent her last race, but she still caucuses with the Republican Party. So I mean, we can be independent and still be the caucus. It's just a matter of playing our position and saying, look, we're not beholden to anybody. These are our demands, and if you don't meet them, then hey, maybe we'll flip.
Yeah, I agree.
But we do got to start looking out for ourselves, though. I mean, because the politicians, they come around when they need us. They stick their head into a room. They are asking to get on our agenda. I've been in meetings where I was presiding over a meeting or something like that, and some local politician wanted to speak. But you only see them when they need that vote, versus when they need to come around and just kind of show us and tell us what they've been doing and asking us what we need and what's most important. So we just gotta, we just gotta balance it out, man. But I say play our position as more kind of in the middle, and again, we can caucus with whoever.
Last two questions, kind of brief, but Hurd, did you do any early voting?
I voted early, yeah.
Did you have to show your ID?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And it's just, and I just brought that up and stuff because for those who are not in the St. Louis area, St. Louis is split up. The region is split up between St. Louis and Illinois, with 70%, about 60% of the population of the metro area being in St. Louis or Missouri. I went early voting, and it's so funny because I'm so used to St. Louis being on the news and things like that, and they talk about it and stuff. I actually went to early voting. I didn't have to show my ID. What they did was that you go in. They asked, did you request a mail-in ballot, and did you get a mail-in ballot? And I couldn't remember, so they looked my address up to see if I requested it. They saw I didn't turn it in just by searching my address and name in a database. And then they also verified if they had me voted on record or whatever the case may be. And I typed in my address, signed a certification, and then I voted. So I just thought that was just.
You said this is in Illinois?
Yeah, I'm in Illinois. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so identification, not necessarily a driver's license, but any kind of ID here, as long as they had proof of your address and who you were.
Yeah, I didn't have to show anything,
Okay.
I just thought it was just, I had wanted to ask that because I know I had put on Facebook that I had voted and it was in and out in 3 minutes and stuff just based on where I live, but I was just really curious. So to see just the difference, just even though we're separated by 1 mile, 2 miles of river,
Yeah, I think they usually send out the cards and tell you what, in St. Louis County, you can vote any precinct. You can vote at any precinct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is new. But if you take any form ID, like a utility bill or something like that, just to show your proof of residence, basically, then you just run it and just verify it, and you're ready to go.
That's interesting. And one thing I wanted to add before I go into the whole little Ice Cube discussion briefly is that the majority of the Black people who live in, most of the Black people live in predominantly red states. For those who don't understand what that is, that means Republican states, normally held by a Republican governor and the Republican state house and the Republican state senate. And so for situations such as the Affordable Care Act, one thing I saw in my research that was interesting was that the majority of the states, I would say about 80% of the states who did not enact they did not do the Medicaid expansion for the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, they were all states with the highest Black population. So, as you see that we just had a Supreme Court justice nominated, it'd be a chance to talk about that. But again, if you want to understand how your vote counted and stuff, President Trump did usher in over 200 conservative judges, and those kind of provide, whether he wins the election or not, that footprint is going to be there for for years and decades to come, because when we're in situations where we lose our employment or we're underemployed or whatever the case may be, to be able to have adequate access, or to even have lower healthcare premiums, that's gone. And also too, for those in the red states, just recalling the research that Black household incomes are significantly lower than blue states. So that's just something to kind of, think about moving forward as we think about economic, just because Butler, you talk about economic mobility. I think that's something that we need to also hold our future legislators' feet to the fire on and stuff, is to make sure that we are able to get some form of balance as far as, Black household income, healthcare benefits, and even unemployment benefits. Just, government, people don't want to be reliant on government like they make it out to be, but our government should be effective in working for us when we're in time of need. And, it's just really interesting stuff, the dichotomy between the red states and the blue states, and just how it really continue, not only just the voter disenfranchisement and suppression, but also how their policies economically hurt Black folks, even though we're heavily populated in a lot of these states. Any comments on that?
Well, let me just also add real quick. In those red states, it's also the highest percentage of poor white people as well, in often cases, particularly in the South. So when they think that they're hurting Black people, they're actually hurting, in many cases, themselves, those in the lower income, brackets in terms of the white population, and also some of the worst health disparities. And here in Missouri, for example, which is not necessarily, it is a red state, I guess you can say. I guess it's center left.
It's magenta.
Magenta, yeah, magenta, right? That color magenta.
Yeah.
You can only find it when you're looking for it on the computer.
Right. On a crayon box.
Yeah, but they rejected the Obamacare originally, but back in August they passed it in our election in August. They did pass it to accept it, which I think is ironic. Which is, it is what it is. But you come around a little late. A lot of people got ill, had a lot of illnesses, and couldn't get that care beforehand. But they wanted to reject it because in many cases that, we can't let them Black people have it though. We can't let the African American, we can't let the Black community have these benefits, but they benefit everybody in many cases. So the good news is that it's been resolved, and so Missouri now is one of those states that does accept, because they did reject that whole Obamacare legislation originally.
Last little segue to the comment and stuff. Jay-Z, Ice Cube, 50 Cent, and even a lesser extent to Kanye. We have numerous instances over the last, I guess, year and a half, where we having these celebrities, entertainers, making comments and stuff, and that we're repudiating their voices and their content and whatever so quickly, just for trying to speak their opinions or speak their mind and stuff. When it comes to issues like this, especially voting, we understand what Kanye's efforts are and what that comes from. I'm not even gonna talk about Lil Wayne. 50 Cent is all about 50 Cent, period. So, but why do we have such backlash when we actually have entertainers and celebrities trying to speak with people, that sits at the head of the table to try to get their, try to, I guess, promote an agenda or something that could provide some kind of benefit for African Americans, even though that Cube, they get manipulated, but I find it really interesting and stuff that, we support them all these times, all these years and stuff. And then, why do we always seem like that we cut each other off after one instance or misstep or mistake or misunderstanding? What do you think is the root cause of that? And, if you become a person that's elevated, Heard or Butler, to sit down at the table with somebody that may not share the same viewpoint and stuff, how would you approach a situation like that, just because of the potential backlash? How would you, what's going on with that, basically?
Well, I would say, like, the Ice Cube situation is real crazy to me. Because if just take a historical look back onto who Ice Cube is and what he represented. Because most of the backlash I've heard on Cube is saying he doesn't speak for us, or who where did he get the cash here to come up with an economic plan for Black people? We didn't sign off on this type deal. But when Ice Cube was screaming F the police within the NWA, everybody was screaming F the police with Ice Cube. So he was good enough to come out then, but now he's bringing something economic to help Black people. We have an issue. But the thing, I never react to certain things like that until I try to get most of the facts. And from what I'm hearing, he also consulted with a lot of Black economists. I know Dr. Claude Anderson, if you ever heard of him. He was one of the people we kind of consulted with in creating this plan. And so basically he had a contract saying this is what Black America wants. I mean, I didn't see anybody else do it. So it's not like he's competing with somebody else who had another plan. So apparently he went to Biden, he said would handle after the election. And Trump being, I would say being smart on this and trying to get more Black votes, saying, yeah, let's take a look at this. And I'll even adjust my current platinum plan to include some of the things that you said. And I don't understand it, Black. I think our hate for Donald Trump as a people is so bad that we can't say we're gonna cancel Ice Cube and not cancel Joe Biden. I don't get that. I mentally don't understand how you gonna say you're gonna cancel this dude who's always been an advocate for our people, but yet you're gonna ride for
decades
for Joe Biden, who has his policies and his bills have destroyed hundreds of thousands of Black family lives. But he cool now. You good with him, but you don't cancel Ice Cube. That's my only issue. He's doing nothing more than trying to better our power hold on this country. He's trying to elevate us to where we're on somewhat of an equal plan, or more. I won't say make us equal. I think the plan was to elevate us higher than we already are. And just for the effort alone, he should be commended. I don't think we as a people should be trying to cancel him or do anything, because Trump took advantage of the situation politically, which that's what they do, which is why Biden will get Cardi B to advance his political campaign. It's the same type of issue. So I don't understand it.
I didn't know Biden got Cardi B like that. That's wild.
Yeah, he had a little interview with Cardi B.
Oh wow. Yeah. Whatever works. Heard.
I'm looking at my bookshelf here. So there's a whole lot, and it's a whole lot to peel back. I think the tensions are high. I think Butler said it. I think the tensions are just so high. People, we're so close to the election. I think people just want to change in the Black community. We want to change, and I think by any means necessary, let's get this change. And so everybody just buckle down, play your position, and let's not have any distractions. But I don't know who Ice Cube spoke with, and I think he's different than some of these other artists that have come out, and maybe it's for the tax reason. I think he probably does have good intentions of trying to do right for the Black community in terms of a plan that's going to support people. I'm not going to talk about motives per se, but this is the book, The Covenant. This was done back in the late 90s, 2000 with Tavis Smiley and a whole consortium of Black scholars, people in business, people in human rights. It's a whole host of things. And they were on C-SPAN for, a couple of years before the 1 year when they decided to put this into a book. But they went on the road with this. Before they actually put the book together for the most part, they did a lot of research and kind of vetted it in the Black community. And I know that the Urban League does a lot of work in terms of plans and things that they want implemented by, through, legislation, some federal resources, et cetera. So I just wish that everybody's communicating. I think, sometimes everybody feels like I have a plan and it should be my plan, where real good plans are really well informed by bringing different people together, opposing views, to get the best policy possible. So I think that's the thing that we need to do a better job at in terms of communicating and just, working together and collaborating. I think that's something that, going back to an earlier point, our community has to do a better job if we're going to really lift ourselves up. But I would say that, just some of these artists, some of it may be just, wanting attention. Sometimes I just say, who cares? We're not monolithic. They have these opinions and whatnot, so be it. But, you made money, but, you sing and you rap and you talk about where you grew up at and how hard it was. But now all of a sudden you're in a different tax bracket. So now your decisions are different. Whereas it should be, how do we really try to uplift all those other people who, come from the streets where I came from. So anyway, they got to do a better job of that. But
yeah,
there's a book that was done, several years ago. I think the process was good because it was very transparent. They went on the road. They went to a lot of churches. I remember when I first moved here to St. Louis, they actually came here to one of the churches and discussed this, and they had a panel discussion on it. So, I mean, they were going from city to city. So I think that's the best way to do it. Don't feel like because you come up with a plan and you had all these scholars, because one important process that I tell a lot of people I consult with from developers, you experience building these multi-million-dollar projects, but now you're trying to build this project near a Black neighborhood, you're getting pushback. You have to really be open and be an active listener. That's the one thing you have to be. You got to be an active listener. Just because you have all the experience in the world, you may have deep pockets, just be an active listener, because there's always something you can learn and something you can grow from and something that will help you do a better job at. Absolutely. And if we just do that more, we will hopefully be in a better place.
Who's the author of that book? You say Tavis Smiley?
This was, Tavis Smiley used to have this, what was it, State of Black America, and C-SPAN used to always cover it. I think it ran for about maybe 5 years, but I think in the last year, the year before, they stopped covering it. He would have like panels like for 2 days, like all weekend. And they decided to get together, almost like a United Nations type group. Different sections written by different people, but it was introduced by, not by Tavis Smiley, but introduced by Tavis Smiley. He was kind of the coordinator of all these different people, like, child advocates, educators, people in business, people in public policy, educators. I mean, it was a whole host of different people, but I still have mine. It's called The Covenant.
But check that out.
Yeah, man, I got it wrote down myself, and thank you for sharing that, Brian. And and I keep saying over and over again, man, just I created a podcast. I have a book that's thematic to this podcast. The podcast is actually an extension of what it is, what I'm writing about. But I just don't believe that my voice is the only voice that needs to be heard. I think that's really beneficial to have other people to be able to share their voices as well, because I don't know everything. I mean, the stuff I know, I think I'm pretty well versed in, or researched thoroughly and stuff, but I may not be able to have, I may not be able to see things the same way and stuff. And so because of that, I do try to be as open and receptive as possible of constructive, criticism and feedback, to try to find ways to improve. So, I mean, if there's something that somebody doesn't agree with, I think they should be able to pick up the phone and ask for clarification. And like you said, be an active listener to that and stuff. I mean, because everybody does have an opinion on something. And if you have a comment or whatever, I think it's better to have a dialogue instead of, coming in head on with assumptions and, making aspersions on what people think or may feel, So I definitely appreciate you saying that. And, I enjoy doing this. Like I said, I don't care if it's 10 people listening or 10,000 people. I mean, it's just an opportunity to capture our voice. So thank you again, bro. Butler, do you have any closing comments?
Closing comments. Definitely appreciate you. Learned a lot from you. Hopefully we get a chance to meet in person, talk more. Cause
sure, absolutely.
Definitely love soaking up knowledge from anyone. So definitely appreciate you on that. And last thing I just want to say I was just thinking on there. I think I would say on a macro level, there was such a lack of Black leadership. Like who are our Black leaders? Like when something happens, what voices are in our ears nationally? I know I see Al Sharpton, or I see the one lawyer, Benjamin Crump, come up whenever like there's a shooting of African-American white police officers, but I don't know who do we look to for leadership? Now, I think back in the 60s, we had Martin Luther King, we had Malcolm X, we had the Black Panthers with Huey Newton. We had those voices in our community that were recognized as leaders. I don't think we have any leaders that are recognized and are respected as such as a whole anymore. I think we have people scattered here and there. And I think there's so much hurt and confusion and lack of trust amongst our people that I don't think we look to anyone as leader or leaders of our people as a whole. I think that needs to change.
I agree. I think that, I think I might have said it last weekend, or maybe I said it in a private conversation. We know in a lot of ways, if we're going to get back to anything, we need to get back to our African roots, where we're able to share a collection of stories, narrative songs, where we all are understanding together, and I think that as we became more integrated, after the Civil Rights Act's passage and other legislation, the more integrated we became, the more separated we became. So now, what you see is a lot of individuals, they're trying to promote their own selves, independent of working together in other groups or others, other people. You have a lot of businesses that are doing a lot of solo practices for their own enrichment versus trying to do partnerships and collaborations. And if you think about it, if you look at white, like white cultures, they don't have a single leader, honestly. I mean, Donald Trump is really an anomaly, more than anything else. We always joke privately about the Great White Hope, and he is basically, from my perspective, the Great White Hope. I find him fascinating, just the way that they follow him, for every single word that he say, or every tweet that he say. But you throw that aside, I mean, even the way that they follow the Catholic Church, in a lot of ways, they don't really, they respect the pastor, but they still have their own individualistic opinions, but they still come together. And so we just have to understand how to get back to those tribal roots and stuff, or even back where, even to some degrees when we were slaves, just to kind of get together to figure out how we're going to solve some of our problems and stuff, so we can, really Black Wall Street, and just find ways to continue to enrich each other instead of, primarily enriching ourselves, which is why we have an obligation after we climb to, not even about economic ability, but we have an obligation to try to continue to uplift each other, especially the younger generation. We're all in our 40s and older, early 40s, mid 40s, whatever. And, we have to find a way to connect to the 20-something-year-olds, because otherwise we're just going to be spinning our wheels in a circle again.
It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So, Herb, man, definitely appreciate you again. We're going to close out the podcast. We're actually closing it out on time. So thank you again, everybody, for listening to the podcast. I'm Dr. Terrence Duncan. I'm with my co-host, Mr. Terrence Butler, and our special guest, hopefully joins our podcast again in the near future, Mr. Brian Hurd. Definitely enlightening brothers. Enjoy the barbershop style conversation. I hope everybody has a good, safe weekend. And, like I said, make sure that you're doing your part to mitigate against the spread of COVID, wear your mask, social distance, and everything in between. And God bless everybody.
Peace.
All right.